Parents, what was the worst thing you got caught doing by your children? Story 1. My son, who was supposed to be sleeping, decided to barge into our room while I was on top of my significant other. I was already yelling no, no, no while the door was opening, so he only got a glimpse while turning around to shut the door. I threw some clothes on and followed him out to tuck him back into bed. He asked me what I was doing on top of Dad. So being my quick-thinking self, I told my son that I was cracking Dad's back. Lol. Son says, "Oh, like Dr. Kevin? My chiropractor." I said, "Exactly like that." I think this wife needs to sit down and discuss her treatments with her husband. Story 2. Not a parent, but a child. I have many stories about this. I walked into my mother doing the dirty with her now husband when I was a teen. Before that, when I was younger, my 2 siblings, toddlers, were crying, and I went upstairs to get my mother and my then stepdad. I waited well over an hour and a half only for my stepdad at the time to open the door in his boxers and my mother in bed under the covers. I thought they were just sleeping though. I was confused because I had knocked about every 5 to 10 minutes during the first hour before giving up. 9 months later, my baby sister was born. Another one was when my mother specifically told me to never look through a box that I originally thought held art supplies. One day, being home alone and bored, I looked for something to do and saw said box. Pulling it down to see what art supplies she had in there, why she didn't want me to use it since she knew how much of an art geek I am, I found a green pleasure toy. Needless to say, I freaked out and put it back where I found it. At around the same time, very dramatic age for me. We were going through storage in the garage when I found a box of pictures. I sat down to look through it. There were pictures of me and my vanishing twin in the womb, pictures of my mother in her high school years, and her private photos, printed out. I'm scarred. Story 3. The first time I saw a rubber wrapper was when I was quite young and in the shower. I didn't question it, I just threw it away and thought, damn, why is it so lotiony? I found more over the next couple of weeks, and I eventually got sick of it. So on one bright and sunny morning, I stormed downstairs after my shower and realized my dad's mate was there. But it didn't matter. I flashed the rip package with a bold white bunny rabbit on it and asked, "What is this? You're always leaving them in the shower. And why are they so damn greasy?" His mate had this wide grin and was silently giggling. Dad started laughing and looked around the room nervously and said, they're my shower caps I use every morning. It's a special lotion to help grow back my hair." Now, obviously, I'm in major doubt. Like, his head is so big, there's no way a cap would fit in such a small package. And I doubt there would be anything that would get this man's hair back. But me being me, I didn't question further and left it at that. Story 4. Not a parent, but one day I was in middle school. I walked in on my dad harming himself. I heard him in our basement and was curious about what he was doing. It was a rough time for our family because of the 2008 crisis, and I think he had been depressed for a while at this point. The only other person who knew of it was my mom because I told her. She took him to get help, and he's doing much better now. We've never spoken of it since, but I could feel that he was embarrassed, but still thankful that he was able to get help. After I found him, I remember back when he took me to the doctor for a checkup that he had long cuts on his arm. He had asked the nurse to check his blood pressure while we were there, and while he pulled up his sleeve, the nurse noticed too. The nurse asked, and my dad said they were from carrying something at work, but I found it odd that you would get 2 long parallel cuts from carrying something. After I found him, it made more sense to me that it was more than likely himself. Man, that's something that would scar kids for life. Good thing this dude's dad got the help he needed. Story 5. Not a parent, but the child. Mom and stepdad always used to have me clean up around the house on weekends for extra allowance as a preteen. This included vacuuming their room. Well, as you can expect, I lifted the bed skirts to find a small bottle of what I thought was vitreous, like the hair serum. All the more thrilling because Mom used to give me some of her unfinished bottles, so I didn't see the harm in pocketing them just that once. I brought it to school and told my friends about it, so we all trooped to our cafeteria bathroom and slicked our hair with it. This one girl I didn't particularly like complained that it was too oily, and I got mad saying that she didn't appreciate what the hair serum was for. A few days later, I caught Mom in our living room and handed her back the bottle, saying I found it under the bed as I was cleaning. She hurriedly hid it and shoved me back into my room. Only years later did I realize what I had found wasn't citrus, it was actually lube. 5 of my friends and I actually put lube in our hair, in a middle school bathroom. Thanks, Mom. Story 6. I grew up as a spoiled, snot-nosed brat, and my family had a lot of issues. My mother cheated on my father, who was probably the best man I'll ever know. My grandparents passed away just when he learned about my mom's affair, and I was in my angsty emo phase, not making anything better. My father broke up with my mother, and I saw him sitting on his bed one night, bawling his eyes out. We locked eyes but didn't speak. I thought nothing of it, shrugged it off, and went off to play video games on my old PS2. Give it a year or so, my emo phase has subsided. Idea recently got into a mini relationship. Nothing serious, but mostly just by name, just so I didn't have to be that one kid at school without a girlfriend. I was easing my way back into emotional response from before the phase, back when it started. I started having flashbacks one night about how much of a brat I was back then, which was my first moment of realization about how much of a jerk I was. I stole things, cussed out my family, and got into fights. Then I remembered my dad bawling on the bed. I knew what it was about that night and didn't say anything. It actually got to the point where it started creeping up my neck, the feeling of guilt for not sitting by him or talking to him. I went downstairs and decided to tell him how I felt. I told him I was sorry for being such a punk-headed jerk, and he forgave me, and I felt so whole. Anyway, the moral of the story, don't forget to better yourself. Memories don't serve as a reminder of your failures to torture you. They're there so you can look back on them for advice. Story 7. This is my story as a kid at the dawn of the mobile phone era. My mom suspected my dad was having an affair. I changed the subject's number to my own number in my dad's phone. My own dad texted me instead of his affair for something along the lines of, "Are you awake? XX?" at about 3 a.m. I remember replying saying, "This is Ryan's number." We've never spoken about it to this day, and I'm 33 in a month. I'm pretty sure that's what my dad would write about if he used Reddit. This dude had the makings of an evil genius at a young age. I approve. Story 8. My wife and I, during one of our intimate moments, were on the couch. I had an amazing time, and I was loud and proud. The stairs to our house have a landing where you can look around the wall and see the whole living room. After, I heard my young son's voice emanating from the stairs asking, "Daddy, why are you laying on Mommy going, oh, oh, oh?" I stubbed my toe and it hurt so much I fell over on Mommy. Go to bed." And he did. I'm pretty sure he'll put it together when he's old enough. Story 9. Not the parent but the child in this story. We all moved in with my grandma because times were hard. My mom really hated my grandma, to the point that apparently she didn't even want to walk through the house to pee. We were all watching a movie in my mom's room, and I saw a can of Lay's stacks, like Pringles. I popped that can open and tilted it down to get some chips, but got covered in my mom's whiz instead. She was taking a whiz in a Lay's can. I went straight to the shower and they never knew. But what the heck? Just for context, there were 3 people on the bed and I was the youngest, so I got the floor. Also, the can is plastic, not paper, so it's different from Pringles and weighs more, I think. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was trying to go slow and quiet so I could somehow sneak them in. I think I kept tilting it, waiting for some damn chips to start sliding down when it hit me. Story 10. When I was young, we had just moved into a new house and I got my period early, but all the pads and stuff were in my parents' bathroom. My dad had gone to bed early that night, before my mom, so I went to their door and knocked gently enough for my mom to hear, trying not to wake my dad. I heard my mom say something, but I couldn't make out what, so I opened the door and walked in. I walked right up to their bed before realizing my mom was on top of my dad. Then I didn't know what to do, because if my dad looked up, he would see me very clearly in the moonlight. So I had walked into their bathroom to hide and formulate a plan. Could I lay down in the bathtub until they went to sleep? Could I hide behind the door? As I'm standing there thinking, my mom comes into the bathroom and she's like, and I was like, my period came early. I need pads. And my dad was like, "Mom's name? Question mark." And then I walked out to leave with my pads. and he scrambled to get his blanket on to cover himself. I was so embarrassed. Story 11. Not a parent. I couldn't sleep one night. For some reason, I was wandering around the apartment. I saw the balcony doors were open, and my mom was sitting on the railing of the half balcony ledge with her legs dangling out, probably thinking about jumping. She could have easily just scooted forward a couple of inches and gone over the side of the 7th floor. I started sobbing and begging her to come in. She did eventually, calling me an idiot and stupid and ruining everything. She's an alcoholic, so I saw a lot over the years before I moved out, but that one stays with me. Story 12. Honestly, the worst thing, the biggest crime that has always led a ton of grief is when I try to sneak a bite of anything for myself. There's one cookie left, and it's the middle of the night with the kids in bed. I try to quietly and stealthily chew, and then from the corner of my eye, I'll spot one of the demon spawn casually lurking. Then before I can even clear my mouth, they sound the alarm and suddenly everyone is up. Mom has cookies! Cookies? Mom's getting us cookies! Repeat this process for every candy and chip I try to eat, regardless of where I hide. Story 13. Not me, but a friend of mine. He self-medicated with alcohol and drank around his kids almost constantly. One occasion, he was angry about something one of the kids did. His youngest daughter went to the fridge and handed him a beer and told him he needed to calm down. He hasn't had a drop since. The power an innocent child holds is amazing. Thank God that scared the drink out of him. Speaking of amazing power, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more heartwarming moments like this. Story 14. I was changing my daughter when she was a toddler, and the little monkey was wriggling around trying to escape. She almost fell off from the changing table. I said, "Crap." There were a few seconds of silence, which was broken by her little voice saying, "crap," perfectly. Uh-oh. I was sure she'd start saying that all of the time because I laughed when she said it. She didn't say it again, though. Changing that kid's nappy was like trying to put clothes on a cat. Luckily, toddlers don't have claws, and she was in a biter. Story 15. I came in on my mom having a severe anxiety attack that was making her throw up, and I tried helping her, but she shooed me out. Now I understand she just didn't want me to see, but now I have anxiety like her, and I think she's even greater of a mom for it. When I have my attacks, I sometimes have my boyfriend take me to the ER to get Ativan because they won't prescribe me decent meds, then feel like an idiot for going to the ER for it. During attacks, I often hurt myself with tics like scratching or clinging to my own arms or other measures that feel like they help me calm but don't. But I don't always throw up like my mom did. I'll gag sometimes but rarely throw up. Sometimes, on bad days, I see a lot of hallucinations just from sheer stress. It really depends. So looking back, while I know my mom didn't want me to see her that way, I understand what she is going through, which makes me respect her that much more. Anxiety runs in the family, huh? This mom's strength and her daughter's empathy are incredible. If we could all get through our anxiety attacks with a little less drama, we'd save on ER bills, right? Story 16. I wish I'd been less cold in front of my kids. I don't mean to be, but I am a fixer. Something bad happens and I don't cry or let it outwardly affect me as much. I just work on making sure everyone is okay and dealing with it. I always keep on keeping on. When my stepdad passed away last year, watching my son struggle to react like me when his favorite grandpa had just died was pure anguish. The struggle in his eyes was because he was trying not to cry because I didn't. And then, when he couldn't hold it any longer, the devastation was awful. Trying to explain to a young child not to be like me was hard. Keeping it in for everyone else's sake should be saved for when people depend on him, and it's okay for him to ask for comfort or help. I've tried to be less internal with things since, but I can't change a lifetime's habit very easily. Story 17. When I was super little, I caught my dad crying really hard. What's awful about it is that I was upset for some dumb reason, yelled at him, and then slammed the door on him. It only took a few moments before the deepest sense of shame and regret hit me. I sat on the couch for what felt like forever and just stewed in the confusion of seeing my dad like that and the shame of yelling at him like I did. He then returned, seemed completely fine, and treated it like it never happened. I didn't understand why he was crying like that until later in life. My parents were going through a divorce without me or my sister knowing. and I'm convinced that was part of the reason he broke down. That memory has sat in my head for 20 plus years, and I cannot shake away that awful regret of yelling at him the way I did, knowing that probably was just the icing on the messed up cake he was having at the moment. Story 18. I'm in a situation where my youngest child has only known me as a depressed parent, whereas my older kids knew me pre-depression diagnosis. When I was my normal self. They have seen, heard, and sadly experienced a parent with depression more than I would ever want any child to. But boy, are my kids compassionate, caring, respectful young people. If they do witness me going through an episode, I make every effort to hide in a corner, but after hours and hours or even days of hiding and crying, making our family routine change, they find me and comfort me, try to calm me, and yes, I cry even harder and longer because I feel like, or no actually, that I'm emotionally scarring them and messing them up for life, and generally just be there for me. They make jokes and are so amazing, but I hate that they see me like that as often as they do. Hate it. Depression is a lot of hard work, man. It sucks. Story 19. When I was playing GTA 5, my young son caught me kicking cats in the game. It took me several hours to calm him down. He was perfectly fine with all the other crimes in the game, but kicking cats was the line in the sand. Story 20. I curse like a sailor, but my daughter has never picked up anything I say. My husband, on the other hand, says that every time he says something, she picks it up and starts using it. For a while, she would burst into rooms yelling, "Surprise, mofo!" And the other day, she joined a voice chat game with me and one of my friends and greeted us with, "Hello, witches." She's good about it though. She knows she's allowed to speak however she wants at home with us, but to be aware of what she says when outside the house, i.e., some places aren't okay, like at school, but others are, like at her grandparents'. Oh, and there is one thing she did sort of get from me, but she changed it up, so it was a bit of a weird one. I may be in my mid-30s, but I can be rather immature in my humor. So whenever my husband can't find something and asks where it is, I always pipe up with, "In Uranus." Again, I know, highly immature. Well, one time my mom was babysitting and making her an ice cream sundae, and she asked her where we keep the syrup, to which my kid, who was 3 at the time, responded, "In daddy's bum." I mean, I was actually impressed that she was able to figure out that the Uranus jokes actually are bum jokes. Since she learned her body parts quite young, she could point to most parts before she could even speak. She didn't know the parts yet, so it was a strange, proud moment, and why I'm saying she sort of picked it up from me, since I never actually said that, but I implied it. The little kid's humor game is on point. I see a comedic genius in the making. Story 21. When my daughter was in elementary school, she needed a jump drive for something. I gave her one that I knew was okay. The day that she needed it, she tried it, and there was some kind of problem with it, so I grabbed another one to give her. You probably already guessed it. There was that folder on there from when I was tossing away an old backup hard drive. She must have opened it up. She did not tell me about it until she was 19. All I could do was say, "Whoops." Story 22. Eating chocolate without sharing. So one day I was cleaning up and I came across an open packet of M&Ms. I ate a few, naturally, and then put the rest of the packet in the kitchen where they belong. Next thing I knew, my daughter was glaring daggers at me, as if I ate her M&Ms. Of course, I told her the truth and said, I don't know. She haughtily informed me that earlier in the day there had been 29 M&Ms in the pack, and now there were only 17, and she could never trust me again. I was like, "You seriously count your M&Ms? Lord have mercy." Story 23. Not actually bad, but my wife had wanted to rearrange our bedroom closet for a long time, but just couldn't find the time with our, at the time, toddler son constantly underfoot. She was out of the house one afternoon, so I decided to surprise her by taking out all the clothes and putting them back the way she wanted. My son was watching me and saw me drape her many skirts and dresses over my arms and shoulders, so I could move them out efficiently. My wife came home, and when she asked him what we'd been up to, he casually said, "Papa was wearing your clothes." My wife shot me a weird glance, and I gave her that "I'll explain later" hand gesture that's part of the nonverbal communication every couple develops after many years together. I'm over a foot taller than her, and close to 2.5 times her weight, so I'm sure the mental image that flashed in her head was very confusing. Story 24. I was in the kitchen doing something and I blurted out, "Son of a," but I trailed off before finishing the sentence. My young one shouts from the living room, "Witch!" Kids are good for that. An ice pack fell out of the freezer and rocketed off the fridge into my ankle. I yelled, "Ow!" And my angelic little daughter yelled, "Damn!" with a great big smile on her face. I worry that she'll have a sailor mouth. Story 25. We have 2 cats and 2 dogs, and they're very annoying, but I love them. Our coon dog mix is bad about hovering when my toddler has food. One time I tried to push her back and she wouldn't move, so I said, "Phoebe, move your bum." Pretty soon my son was telling all the animals to move their bums if they were in the way. Then the other day we were snowed in, so I decided to lay down for a nap with him. After I finally got him settled in the bed, our huge ginger cat jumped on top of me, and I said, "Oh crap." I'm still trying to convince him that he shouldn't say "oh crap" every time one of the cats jumps up on something. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy, waiters, what seriously f***ed up things have you overheard? Story 4 is so wild. See you on that video.